What do the new head coach and offensive coordinator changes mean for fantasy football drafts currently going on with the FFPC and KFFSC? What do you do in order to win the 2025 FFPC Superflex Best Ball Tournament Championship? And of course, are we finally going to have hope in the Bears offense thanks to their new head coach? Plus, we have the $10,000 FFPC Never-Too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament Champion from 2024. Brad Thomas joining us tonight. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship over at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. We have a fantastic show for you tonight. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. He's going to be joining me here shortly. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to talk about some breaking news actually coming out of Dallas, which is always good to get on a Friday night. We don't often get that. We'll get into that. We'll also talk about a potential sophomore stud that could be creeping up into the second or gasp even the first round as we move through draft season. That plus Brad Thomas, the champion of the 2024 FFPC Never-Too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament, will join us as well. He's going to talk about his unique build to win that $10,000 grand prize. He's going to talk a little bit about how he treats quarterbacks in Superflex drafts and how his drafts are going in the 2025 Never-Too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament as well. It's going to be a baller show. We're gonna have a good time tonight for sure. Of this, I promise you for sure. If you want to connect with us on X, the show is at HSFF Hour. Of course, Eric Balkman, and then KFFSC.com is where to check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship as well. Facebook.com/HSFF Hour. If you have any questions for us, send them in to us now. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, emails, and the fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. I want to thank our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce, and of course our producer and mutual friend Rob. I do want to bring up tonight something at the top of the show. Blog Talk Radio, which we have long used as our podcast distributor, as of today is no more. And I've been working with them for the last few weeks, trying to get our RSS feed switched to the new podcast distributor that we'll be working with. And I work with them at my other gig, one of my other gigs, I should say, and they're great. However, I'm having a heck of a time doing it right now. So whether you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, anything like that, we are having some issues with that, which means for the next week or two, hopefully not any more than 2 weeks, we may not have an audio podcast coming out every week. You can, however, watch it on video. We will have it on the FFPC YouTube channel, as well as the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour YouTube channel. And I'll be working diligently to try to get that feed up with our new distributor as soon as possible. I had an issue with putting it under the original podcast account, and then my account completely got deleted today, which is always fun. So we're working through it. Just want to let you know that that's what's going on in case you don't see the audio podcast come up. And if you're seeing this now, great. But if you normally only listen to the audio, I don't know. I'll try to find a different way to get this news to you for sure. Okay. Moving forward here tonight. If you are interested in drafting in the FFPC, by the way, KFFSC drafts kicking off here shortly. I'll be drafting Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, over in the Big Payback League. Also drafting February 18th, if anybody wants to join that Super Sweet 16 draft as well. The Sweet 16 over at KFFSC.com. Shout out James Hicks and Scott Christian. Oinker says hi. Those guys will be drafting this coming Saturday at the KFFSC big Super Bowl party, which is going to be a lot of fun. I won't be at it, but I still will be drafting with a lot of the people there. So it'll be a blast. I'm excited to get that going. The FFPC has the Never-Too-Early Superflex best ball tournament and the Never-Too-Early best ball tournament going on right now at myffpc.com. You can enter for $200 in the best Never-Too-Early tournament. That's a $40,000 grand prize. You can also enter for $35 in the Superflex version. That has a $10,000 grand prize. Tournaments started this past Sunday. They're going to run all the way up until April 24th, which is the first day of the NFL draft, and then they'll be cut off for the season. Drafts are available right now with 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clocks. MyFFPC.com is where to go to sign up for those. Tom Smith actually popping in the YouTube chat right now. He said he just had a Never-Too-Early 2-hour slow entered today. So good on you, Tom, for sure, to enter those. And maybe you'll be the 5-figure winner in this contest this year. While you're at the FFPC's website, why don't you go ahead and pick up a Dynasty Orphan or 3? We have plenty of them available on there. The entry fees normally range from $77 all the way up to $5,000. However, if you look at myffpc.com/dynasty and click on the Orphan link, you're going to see that a lot of those teams have been discounted by quite a bit to tantalize you in picking up some Dynasty Orphans this year for 2025. If you like playing fantasy football 365 days a year, that is where to go, myffpc.com. As a reminder, we've been doing this for a decade and a half. We've never had a league fold. We've had plenty of leagues fill. We've never had a league fold out of 1,800 plus leagues. myffpc.com is where to go for that. We got a lively chat going on with Tom Smith, James Hicks, Mr. Bakes a lot joining us tonight. It's going to be a fun show. Ferrell Elliott is on his way, but I want to kick things off with some breaking news that we have coming from Ian Rappaport. This came right around dinner time tonight, late this afternoon, early evening. Rappaport is reporting that the Dallas Cowboys have made an offensive coordinator hire. It is Cardinals offensive line coach Clayton Adams, who will be the new OC for HC, Brian Schottenheimer down in Dallas. They gave this guy a virtual interview earlier this week, and then they met with him in person today and offered him the job. When asked about the importance of the Dallas offense, the importance of the running game in the Dallas offense, Stephen Jones really emphasized that, we got to get this ground game going. And to boot, they hired an offensive line coach in Arizona. They also need to replenish the backfield there with Ezekiel Elliott being cut, with Rico Dowdle, a free agent, and maybe, we're all rooting for Dallas to take a running back high in the draft last year. It didn't happen. However, maybe this is a signal that they will be putting high emphasis on the Cowboys, on the running back position here going forward, which would be great news because the Dallas offense definitely needs some balance. They need health from Dak Prescott, and they need some balance there. Rico Dowdle, I think, was fine. He may have priced himself out of Dallas, which is, non-zero chance of that. But it'd be fascinating to watch free agency and the draft coming up as the Cowboys look to be putting their money where their mouth is in getting a offensive line coach to run their offense this season as well. That is the news coming out of Dallas. I want to bring in the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. You know him well from X at jferrellelliott, at KFFSC official, and of course, KFFSC.com. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the guy who is running everything with the Super Sunday drafts this coming weekend at Caesars, Southern Indiana for the KFFSC. Please welcome in my buddy, Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, welcome in, man. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine, Balky, and I apologize for my lateness. My computer is imitating a paperweight, so we're coming to you by phone. And since I spent the day talking to possibly everybody that I know, perhaps we won't be interrupted during the show with phone ringing. But you were talking about Dallas running backs. I wonder if they'd like to get in the time machine and go back and get Derrick Henry. Just curious.
I think
just wonder. That.
You think Henry would have been down for that?
Well, they were the stalking horse for Derrick Henry. So I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, I think you make a good point. I think Dallas now to counter that issue. I don't think it was the running game that held Dallas back this year. I don't think a running game would have saved them.
No.
Once Dak Prescott went down, that the season kind of went down the crapper, and I don't know if that would have saved them. However, that's hopefully a mistake. They don't make 2 years in a row here, and we'll see what happens there with Dallas. Adam Thielen, let's talk about him, Ferrell. According to the Daily Mail, he is quoted as saying, "I think I still have some football in me," when he was asked about retirement. This is the final year of the 3-year deal that he signed with the Carolina Panthers 2 years ago, but he can be cut by Carolina, dead cap hit of $5 million, 48 catches, 615 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Underwhelming numbers, but remember, he basically only played half the season for Carolina. 12.8 yards per reception. That was his highest number in 5 years. 62 targets, were second on the team behind Xavier Legette's 84. But remember, Legette played in 6 more games than Adam Thielen. This is a guy who gets open. This is a guy who's a veteran that knows what he needs to do in order to butter his bread. And Adam Thielen could be the number 1 receiver for Carolina in 2025. A Carolina offense that seems suddenly rejuvenated, Ferrell. We're not talking about Adam Thielen as a top 25 receiver this year, but could he offer some value right now for drafters who many of them have forgotten that Thielen exists, and yet we could see some value, maybe not so much in best ball because he's not a big spike week guy. But once we get into the managed drafts, Thielen has a guy that is going to have that high floor with now seemingly a pretty talented quarterback throwing to him.
Half a season play with 5 touchdowns. I'm in on that. When he's on the field, he contributes. He's the kind of player that I would love to see playing for a contender. And that's not where he is this year. And if he stays with Carolina, that's where he probably won't be next year. But he's an enjoyable player to watch. He's a great competitor. He knows how to play the position, and you can count on him. If he's going to play, you're going to, if you have the per game breakdown, I'm sure you'll see some 5, 6, and 7s in there as far as catches in some of them. And while he was an afterthought in the draft, he certainly was a darling of the waiver wire. Don't have that ability in best ball, so yeah, go ahead and draft him late now, and I think he'll score for you more weeks than you'll be surprised.
Thielen missed a good chunk of the season. He came on slow as the Panthers offense did this past year, and then when he came back in late November, he had a 3 for 57 game. But after that, Ferrell, 8 for 99, 9 for 102, 5 for 51, 5 for 43, 5 for 110, 5 for 44. You're getting my point here. This is a high floor guy, and he had a couple of spike weeks in there. Basically 300-yard games. That was like almost half the games he played when he came back from injury were 100-plus yard games. So you got to like Adam Thielen, who is being drafted in the 14th round right now in the FFPC Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament as wide receiver 64. People are drafting him as a 6th wide receiver. Give me that value there. By the way, I get that ADP from fantasymojo.com, at fantasymojo on the X. That is Darren Armani's website, the godfather of the pros versus Joes. And anytime we cite ADP or any of those other FFPC statistics, it is all due to him. Check him out. And if you are playing in the FFPC, highly recommend you subscribe to fantasymojo.com. Let's talk about the T. Higgins situation that's going on in Cincinnati right now. Bengals director of player personnel, Duke Tobin, who, as I understand it, is basically the GM for the Bengals. He said the team needs to find the right number in order to extend Higgins' contract this offseason. This after already saying the priority is Jamar Chase. No surprise there, Triple Crown winner for wide receivers. But T. Higgins is still a guy that Cincinnati wants to sign. However, Tobin did say it's going to be difficult to keep both players. He's hopeful that Higgins will be around. He said the contract is going to be based on his performance, playing time, and his experience over 5 seasons with the Bengals so far. The right number may be different for T. Higgins than it is for the Bengals. And maybe he'll get to the open market and he leaves Cincinnati. I don't know what's going to happen with him. But Ferrell, for those of us who throw caution to the wind and are drafting right now, we have to make a stand on how we're handling T. Higgins right now. FFPC best ball.
I should have drafted him. I should, in my last 2 or 3 seasons, have drafted him more often. The Bengals should pay him. If they don't, they're going to regret it. Who's the number 3 receiver in Cincinnati?
Well, I thought it was going to be Jermaine Burton, but after Tobin kind of said that he basically said he's done nothing to deserve a roster spot in 2025. I guess it's unequivocally, Andrei Yoshibash. I believe that's who I would guess.
Well, Yoshibash is making the minimum. Burton's on a rookie deal. If you're managing each core room of your team, you shouldn't have any trouble finding the money to pay Higgins. And if you're going to pay another receiver, you're probably going to waste that money because you're going to get better out of Higgins. I've been late to the party on this player, and I think the player is underrated by everyone. And I'm the biggest culprit there, because when I talk to guys that won, like we're going to talk to our guests tonight, I don't know if he had Higgins, but so many of them always do. And it's a good ball player. Cincinnati should try to keep that together as long as they can.
FFPC best ballers are drafting T. Higgins as wide receiver 13 right now, Ferrell, going off the board.
It's a little high.
At the 304. I agree. He's going ahead of Garrett Wilson. He's going ahead of Jackson Smith and Jigba. I could get on board with Higgins over McLaurin and Higgins over Mike Evans, but I would probably let Higgins slip to more the end of the 3rd round, early 4th round right now. I think people are drafting him not at his ceiling, but closer to his ceiling. That's too rich of a price tag for me, and it sounds like it's too rich of a price tag for you at the 304.
Yeah, I don't think I would take him in front of McLaurin or Evans. So, again, you see why I don't end up with Higgins. After everything I say, I'm not going to draft him where everyone else is drafting him.
Well, let me tell you,
I got to cut out some time and get in one of these draft rooms and draft some teams.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it. I encourage everyone that's listening to do so.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments as well. Now, a guy who is going a little bit higher than Higgins, this is the last point I want to touch on before we bring in tonight's guest. Liam Cohen has said that he was impressed with Brian Thomas's performance in the slot in 2024. A lot of people, myself included, just assumed that this guy was going to be an outside receiver coming into the NFL from LSU. However, 28% of his routes in this past season came from the slot. Only Puka Nacua and Marvin Mims from Denver had a higher yards per route run from the slot. Cohen, the quote from Liam Cohen, the new head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars: I did not know he had the ability to do what he did in the slot. I probably didn't evaluate him hard enough, but also they did a good job getting that right. End quote from Cohen. Only 6 receivers had more yak than Brian Thomas from the slot last year. 5th in wideout receiving yards as a rookie, not amongst rookies, overall in the league. And if this is a guy that is going to be funneled targets from the slot next year, gimme all the Brian Thomas I can get. Ferrell, there is a premium being put on him in the FFPC Never-Too-Early tournaments right now. Brian Thomas going off the board, much higher than T. Higgins. Wide receiver 8 at the 202. He basically ends a long run for receivers that starts at the 107 and it ends at the 202. We have 6 receivers going in there. Brian Thomas, almost a borderline, well, he is a borderline first-round pick at this point. How rich is that? Is it too rich for Ferrell? I don't think it's too rich for Balky.
It might be a little too rich for me, but it's only because I love so many receivers in that range. Who's going right behind him? Who's going right in front of him? Those are guys I might want to go with a little sooner, a little quicker, a little earlier, and I can have more faith in than a Jacksonville Jags receiver. Hey, they're going to fix it. And but I'm at that kind of draft position, I might want to go with somebody who I think is already there and already in rhythm of having a great career at the position.
I will say this, of that, there's a group of 6 that are going, like I said, in that little run there. It's Lamb, it's Nacua, it's St. Brown, Collins, and Neighbors, and then Brian Thomas, on average, is the last guy going among those 6. Then their half round goes by, and then you get into A.J. Brown. Then another couple of picks go by, and then you get into Drake London, and then that's it for the second round. Then you're looking at Ladd McConkey, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins in the 3rd round. So he is at least going at the end of that run, but I think you could make a case for A.J. Brown over Thomas. You could make a case for London over Thomas. I still feel like Thomas is fine value at the 202 there. I would take him there. That's my personal thoughts on it. But listen, nobody is here to hear what I have to say about players tonight, Ferrell. They just want me driving the train. They want you. I know you are. But you are my co-pilot here tonight.
I love listening to you.
What we need to do is keep the train on the tracks and bring in our next guest, who is the star of tonight's show, a guy who is the current and defending champion of the FFPC Never-Too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament. He turned $35 into $10,000 this past year, and he's already been drafting teams trying to defend his title. Please welcome on Mr. Brad Thomas onto the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Brad, good evening, welcome, and happy Friday night to you, sir. How are you? Do we have Brad? I thought we had him. Brad, can you
He's
hear
looking
us?
good, man. He's coming in. He's looking good, but he isn't talking about anything yet.
Yeah,
there
Brad,
he is.
Can you hear us? Hold on. He may not be able to hear us right now. Okay, Brad,
Bucky, you got to hit some of those buttons.
I'm gonna PM. I'm gonna PM what the kids say right now to Brad, and see if he can.
Is that what they say?
Private message or DM?
Oh, that's some cool stuff. I like the PM better. I'll be right back, Bucky.
Okay, you pop right back. Brad is busy at work adjusting his audio, as am I. I'm trying to figure it out right now so we can get Brad on. I'm going to bring Brad back right now. Brad, do you have us? No? Testing 1, 2, 3. No, nothing from Brad yet. Okay, hold on. We will make this happen. And get Brad on here talking shortly. As listen, we got to get the champion, the defending champion of the Superflex Never-Too-Early tournament from the FFPC to join us tonight. Brad, I think I can hear you, but I don't know why you can't hear us. Unfortunately, the earbuds are in. It is working. Your audio is working on our end. I can hear you, but unfortunately, you cannot hear us for some reason. I know this is scintillating for everybody watching tonight. But the Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament is something that we established, what is this, year 3, year 4, something like that. And it's pretty unique where we have these drafts start basically while the season is still going on, the previous season going on, but we cut off all the drafts by the start of the NFL draft. So you will draft all these rookies not knowing which teams they're going to be on. Adds a layer of strategy, adds a lot of fun to it, and certainly it like anything, it takes a little luck to win it. But it sometimes takes more than that. It takes strategy, it takes team construction, it takes player evaluation, and once you incorporate all that into it, you cook that up, and hopefully the end result of that recipe is a $10,000 grand prize, which is what Brad Thomas won this past year. Ferrell, you're back. How are you? Everything good?
It takes an internet connection and a well-connected charging cord and, a lot of patience sometimes.
It does.
Our good friend, your best friend, Bryce, your best friend, Bryce, is probably stunned to have his name drug through the production mire of our show tonight. Yeah, as our producer.
I know, but Bryce is letting us down. However, he may have just come through. I'm going to bring Brad on right now. We should be good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in the defending champion of the Superflex Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament for the FFPC, Mr. Brad Thomas. Brad, welcome in. How are you, dude?
I am so sorry. It wouldn't be a night without an internet issue. We are good.
The rampant. It's just like a virus of internet problems.
This is totally appropriate for this show, which is no stranger to having audio and visual technology problems over the years. Most of them caused by me, but I'm glad we got everything figured out tonight. Brad, it is so good to have you on. Tell us before we get started with the fantasy football portion of the program, what are you doing for a living when you're not cashing these 5-figure checks for winning FFPC tournaments?
So So my full-time job, I am a crisis response clinician. So I am responding to all mental health calls in the city of San Antonio. We respond to people that have psychosis, to that want to have self-harm, to just needing any kind of crisis. It's pretty wide range. And then we connect them to different resources. So if they need housing, if they need employment, if they need medication, so we're connecting them, getting them back on their feet, and we actually work with the police department and the fire department and respond immediately on scene. So it's a really exciting job.
How long have you been doing
What
this?
a great career. What a great career. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I just started this job last year, but I've been in the mental health field for about 15 years now.
Good for you.
Yeah, so it's great. We've definitely been helping a lot of people, and it's a really rewarding job.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Good for you, brother.
Sure. Yeah,
Really, really rewarding is, man, that should be one of your team names. If you ever come to Kentucky, Balky likes to name his teams some unique things. Really rewarding because, your $35 entry fee was managed, drafted, and wished into a $10,000 win. Congratulations on that. Walk us through a little bit of Week 17. We've asked this to all our winners that come on, and some of them downplay it a little bit. I think if Week 17, I know if I was sitting on a big prize, I know how I would be thinking. Tell us about your Week 17.
So, believe it or not, I could not tell you 3 or 4 players that I had on that team that day.
Oh, my God.
I refuse to know who's on my team. So Week 17, the 12 o'clock games are over. I know I have Burrow, and I know I have Mayfield. I said Mayfield just threw 5 touchdowns. This could be a good thing. So at that point, that's when I turned my computer on, and sure enough, I'm in first place by a good margin. I said this could be something. So then I start looking. I look at my team, and the weakest player on my team in my lineup was Devin Singletary, who had 5 points. Well, on my bench was Bijan, who hadn't played. He ended up playing Sunday night against Washington. So I said, this is good. I mean, so and then you go into panic mode. You start looking at the teams behind you. Who do they have? How many points can they catch up by? And I think the one thing that made me nervous was Detroit played San Fran that Monday night. And a lot of people had they had Gibbs, they had Amon-Ra. So those guys could go off for 25 or 30 any night. So I wasn't super excited yet. I was still kind of keeping my guard down a little.
Did you have a crew that joined you in watching Monday night, or were you solo?
I was solo. I can't do it. I did call my dad that night. I was telling him he's a big fantasy football. He's like a best ball junkie like me. And we're actually in a lot of the same leagues together. And I told him I'm in first. I think I have a chance. And actually, so it was pretty wild actually. And that's when I actually knew like what players were on my team. That's the first time I actually looked.
So
I think it's great that you and Dad share this hobby and are being very, very successful with it. Maybe maybe Dad will spend some time with Balky in the future, Balky.
I think that's a pretty safe bet. More on that at the end of the show. I will say this too, Brad. When I was looking over your teams, you had 2 teams in the Superflex Never-Too-Early best ball tournament final. One team obviously won the 10K. The other one finished in 6th place. Were you also watching that squad as well, especially, with the late games going on Sunday and then on Monday night with the Lions and Niners? Were you trying to pay attention to 2 different teams, or did this one that was in first place capture all of your attention?
So that team that got in 6th place somehow made it to the finals with just Bryce Young as my quarterback. He had I had Kirk Cousins and I had Dak Prescott, who both obviously weren't playing Week 17. So that team was actually better than the team that won because the overall team was actually better, believe it or not. I had Bucky, I had Gibbs, I had McConkey, Addison, Brian Thomas, Jacobs, Laporta. I had a CD Lamb on there.
You know everybody on this team. Team that wins the championship, you don't know anybody. What the? I don't get it. How much does sixth place pay when you collect? What did sixth place pay?
It's probably around, I think.
I'm looking it up right now.
We're looking it up.
Sixth place. Well, I don't know if we tweaked it, the prize structure at all this year, but
probably did.
Sixth place this year got $750. So that's what
you know what we call $750. That's called Kentucky money. That'll get you down near 3 teams down here. So they need to come on. $750. You are a Kentucky millionaire. $750. You get on down here with that. That's great, man. That's great.
Yeah,
I see that you are a man that does not live in fear. I see you don't live in any kind of fear because your first round pick was Joe Burrow. He's limping around. He's got a weird haircut. There's all kinds of strange things going on with Joe Burrow. What made you take Burrow? I mean, do you just not pay any attention to all that talk?
No, because you know what? The offseason news for Burrow was pretty positive for the most part. I didn't see too many things that concerned me. I think when Burrow's healthy, he's putting up numbers. I mean, 43, 44 passing yards, 34, 35 touchdowns. He's one of the best when he's playing. And I really didn't have too many concerns. You got to take chances. I think when you're at the end of the first in a Superflex, there's going to be quarterbacks that have some question marks. I think Richardson went around there and Stroud. So you're going to take some guys. You're just going to take a chance. Burrow was a guy that the media was kind of, there's a lot of news about him, what's going to happen. I think if you remember after week 1 against the Patriots, there was that weird, he picked up a bottle kind of strangely, right? And social media kind of went crazy with that. So I didn't really have too many concerns with Burrow, and he's actually my most drafted quarterback last year.
And
good for you, buddy.
Fortune favors the bold, right? And sometimes you have that case where everybody else is kind of shying away from him, and when that happens, it represents a buying opportunity, which you took advantage of, and congratulations on that, because that definitely helped you out in winning this 10K. Getting in, and I'm trying to bring up your draft board here, and so I can talk about this a little bit more clearly. But at the point where it came to you, you were drafting last in this draft at the 312. I came back to you. 17 quarterbacks were off the board at that point, Brad.
Wow.
You went tight end after taking Burrow. Help me out. Who? I don't have the right board in front of me. It was Burrow that you took, and then who was your second round pick? Do you remember?
Yeah, I took
Bijan Robinson, maybe. Yeah,
Bijan
okay.
Robinson, yeah.
Right. So it was Burrow and then Robinson. Then it comes back to you at the 312. 17 quarterbacks off the board. You only have one. You double down on tight end. Travis Kelce at the 312. Trey McBride at the 401. You kind of alluded to this in your previous answer. Why did you shy away from quarterback there, knowing you would not get another chance to draft another signal caller until the 512?
Because I think there was an opportunity to get an edge at a different position. Your 2 of my top 3 tight ends at that point were still on the board. And I thought, well, I could chase after the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Or I could just grab to be done with that position and have the edge over my competitors. I still might be able to grab a quarterback later as a QB2. And it worked out because I believe I got Mayfield with my next turn.
And
worked out pretty well.
The quarterbacks that were left were wasn't really interested as much. And so I had Kelce and I had McBride pretty high up there.
It's not often, Brad, that people will say, yeah, I was fine passing on some of those quarterbacks. One of those quarterbacks was Jaden Daniels. And I would normally ask you, oh, God, don't you wish you would have taken Jaden Daniels? And unequivocally, you come back at me and say, no, because I won the 10,000 without Jaden Daniels. I didn't need him, Balky.
Yeah.
I knew what I was doing with Kelsey and McBride there. And then obviously Mayfield at the 512 was awesome.
Oh yeah, I mean, I
love that.
If you're late on quarterback, Mayfield was the guy.
How much, when you're consuming football, I love to see the guys that are drafting early. And I think that the guys that draft early have a unique way of relating to football. How much do you spend with it now? Are you watching the shows? We just had the East-West Shrine game. Senior Bowl week is this week. How deep are you into looking ahead, or are you just making your decisions right now based on the kind of play that you remember from the 2024 season?
For me, best ball is year round. There's no breaks for this. I'm streaming, watching videos every day. I am trying to get to know the rookies, seeing who's playing well at the Senior Bowl. And I think that's, so I'm always, I have videos going on at work, in the car. I am diehard with this stuff. So,
see,
I'm really
Balky, I knew how he was going to answer that question before I asked it. So just so you know, I knew exactly what he was going to say before. You are that guy. So in your assessment of all this, let's help out the lesser mortals who are curious about the rookie running backs. I think if you look west, there's one from Boise, there's one from Arizona State. You can talk about those two guys, or you can talk about anybody else you want to talk about. Well, I'm more interested maybe in your process than the players, but since you're doing the process, go ahead and tell us about the players you like.
I think a lot of people agree that this is an extremely deep rookie class for running backs. The receiver not so strong, but the rookie running backs, this is going to be a good year. I still look at the ADP right now, and I use the Fantasy Mojo site to kind of look at ADP whenever I'm drafting. I still think the rookie running backs are going too late in these drafts. Genty's on a prospect level of Bijan Robinson. And you can still get him right now, I believe, in like the early third round. I think he moves up. I think he's going to be a 1-2 turn player.
Wow.
I think people are going to be looking
in the area where you could get Saquon Barkley in 2024.
Yeah.
That's where Barkley was going. That's fantastic. Tell us about Genty a little bit, and who's your next guy? Who's your next running back?
Yeah, Genty, I think it's going
to. Well, wait a minute. Let me ask a better question. Is Genty a superstar? You just said the class is deep.
Mm-hmm.
But you would go ahead and spend that draft capital on Genty, depending on where he lands. I guess the question is, it's a deep class. Is he just an obvious superstar player?
I think we should be careful with our expectations when it goes too high. I think we've seen some players where they just don't. Even Bijan, his rookie year was great. Was he worth like a top 8 or 9 pick? Probably not. So I'd be careful with how far he goes up. But if I can grab Genty in the second round right now, I will. I think he is a top 12. I think he's probably a top 12 running back to finish the year. Depends on where he goes. He goes to like the Dallas Cowboys. All systems go with that. But there are some teams that might cap his ceiling a little bit this year. So I would kind of hold off on expectations a little. I wouldn't say he's a top 3 or 4 running back, but I like where he's going right now.
Running back, go ahead, Brad. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Running back 7 for Genty right now at the 208. He's gone as late as the 303 in more than a dozen drafts in the Never-Too-Early Superflex tournament right now. Do you think, Brad, when you talk about him ascending to that 1-2 turn, do you think that will happen after he's drafted? Sometimes I think with this Never-Too-Early tournament, the people who are taking chances on these rookies are often rewarded because simply the fact that these guys don't have teams yet it just pushes them down the board, something I think you alluded to with the running backs. I'm with you. I think Genty rises, but I think he will actually need an NFL team first before that rise takes place.
I can see that. Yeah, it's where he goes is really going to see how far he goes up in the draft, because if he does go to like the Dallas Cowboys, he's top 10, top 12. But if he goes to a team that's not as sexy, we could see him fall a little bit. So yeah, I agree. I think we're gonna have to wait and see where he goes to really get that like first round draft capital. But I think he's worth a shot right now in the second round for sure.
What about let's talk about, we're talking about all these sexy rookies this year. Let's talk about the sexiest rookie this time last year, Marvin Harrison Jr., a player that we kind of thought he was going to Arizona, but we didn't know at that point for this draft. And I saw him go second, third round pretty regularly in like the main event, the Fantasy Pros Championship, so on and so forth, after he was drafted. Right now, in the Never-Too-Early Superflex tournament, Brad, he's wide receiver 20. He has fallen to the 404 behind the likes of Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Rashee Rice still going ahead of him. What's in store for year 2 of Harrison in Arizona this year? What kind of a year is he going to have?
I think, well, let me say, I think his expectations last year were just really high. I think, just probably just unfairly high. I think wide receiver 20, I think that's appropriately priced. He's going at a good price where I think there's still some room for him to move up. He had over almost 900 receiving yards last year. So he had a decent year, just wasn't worth where he was going. I expect a better year. Some of the metrics for Marvin Harrison were pretty good last year. He was a top 10 receiver in air yards, and so he's with good company with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I think his target share was pretty low. I think it was around 22%. Guys like Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors were over 30%. So I kind of want to see that go up. But I do think that he's going to be probably a wide receiver 2, potentially a low-end wide receiver 1. That's my guess for the season.
Mm-hmm. That's what a 4th round pick should give you, I think. It's just fantastic. Balky, you got any other receivers you like from last year that you want to talk about? Because we've talked about a few of them, and all of them are players that I didn't draft, and all of them are players that I think I want to draft this year. Is there anybody else you want to throw in there?
Yeah, let me bring up Jackson Smith and Jigba real quick on this.
There
Brad,
you go.
Because I wouldn't say I liked him last year, but I wasn't shying away from him. I ended up with him in a few spots, and spoiler alert, those teams did pretty good. Part of the reason I think he did so well last year was I think we saw Tyler Lockett approach the cliff, maybe teetering off the edge of the cliff right now. The other thing, too, is Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator who did wonders with Michael Penix and McMillan and Jalen Polk and Odunze for Washington. He comes over and he's just pass with Geno Smith last year, which was great for JSN. However, it doesn't seem like Mike McDonald wanted to have another year of Ryan Grubb calling all these passes, wants more balance, and he brings in Clint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator for Seattle, which is probably a good thing for Kenneth Walker, maybe not a great thing for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Right now, he's being drafted wide receiver 15 at the 304 in the Never-Too-Early Superflex tournament. Brad, what's the impact of this new offensive coordinator and potentially new offensive scheme going to have on JSN? Does that mean we're drafting him too high right now?
I think he's probably being slightly overdrafted. It's funny, as him and Metcalf just switched places pretty much. And I think Kenneth Walker is actually pretty good value for where he's going.
Yep.
Where his ADP is for Najigba, I don't think I'd be taking him there. I would need him to fall a little bit further than that. I don't have him that much separated from like Marvin Harrison. I see the potential. He's very talented, but we don't really know how this offense exactly is going to go. And So I want to take a cautionary, a little more caution when I take Najigba, and that seems a little high for me.
I like that. You know, listening to you, you've got a great hand of football, and I can tell you know about the ADP that comes from drafting, and you've already mentioned our good friend Armani and his fantasy mojo, and you know it's you're just another champion who is a subscriber of the mojo, and sometimes I don't think that we can ever promote the work he does enough. And if you're playing fantasy football without the mojo, you're probably making a mistake because the guys want to be like you. They want to sit there and they want to field this question from me. And you know, Balky used to ask this question, and I accused him of being nosy. And so now the question always comes up on my sheet. So the question I have for you, and by Commissioner's fiat, we've already determined what you're going to do with the sixth place money, so we don't need to talk about that. That's going to come to the KFFSC. So what are you going to do with the remaining $10,000?
So I also won, besides this one, I won another tournament on a different site. And so
no, we don't want to talk about that because that money's no good. That money's no good to you at all. The money that's good is the money that you want over here. That money that you want on the other side should definitely be. It should be donated to the crisis line. You should donate to your crisis line.
Yeah.
Because if you come on here and talk about that again, we're going to have another crisis. So it's going to be a no, I'm teasing you. Congratulations. I want you to win everywhere. Yes,
absolutely.
But what are you going to do with this money, that FFPC money? There's no better money than the FFPC money.
No, I think FFPC is perfect for the way, for me, because we get the draft so early. I absolutely love this site. There's no other site that I can draft the second week after the second week of the NFL playoffs for the upcoming season. And the high stake leagues is just amazing. Got to do my first main event last year. So no, I love FFPC. As far as the money, I'm actually using it for a down payment on my first house.
Bravo. Nice work.
Wow.
Good stuff. Excellent.
Fantastic.
Awesome, Brad. Planting roots in San Antonio.
That's the best answer we've ever had.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Oh.
Are you still sticking around the San Antonio area? Is that where the house is going to be?
I am, yes. My family's here, so I'm going to be sticking here.
Couple of emails here that came in for you, Brad, this week. Jim in Roswell, Georgia is going to lead it off. Is every Superflex draft different when it comes to quarterbacks? Good question there from Jim in Roswell. I always ask this, and I didn't this time, but Jim is doing it anyway, because the answer I usually get is no, I don't have a set round where I want to have two quarterbacks. I want to have this many tight ends. So is it true, Brad, when you're drafting these teams, that some drafts you'll start off with two quarterbacks, some you won't take your second quarterback to the fifth round, like the one you did last year where you won $10,000? Is that normally how it goes for you?
Every draft's completely different. I've already done 5 or 6 Superflex tournaments so far, and I can tell you I've had some without a single quarterback in the first 2 rounds. I've had some with 2 quarterbacks back to back. So no, I don't go into any draft with a certain strategy or where I should be taking my quarterbacks. I do prefer a certain strategy as far as trying to get like a top guy and then trying to get like an elite player at a different position. But I don't go in because I feel like that kind of confines you a little bit. So
I want to go to, who is this right here? John in Phoenix. Okay. Congrats, Brad. How are you attacking Stephon Diggs in drafts right now? Stephon Diggs not only is a free agent, by the way, thank you for the email, both Jim and John. Stephon Diggs, not only a free agent, coming off a torn ACL as well. This is a tricky guy considering he's on the wrong side of 30 as well. Is there just too many red flags here for you to attack Diggs, or is there some value in drafts right now for him, Brad?
Yeah, he is tricky. I'm always a little nervous with the torn ACL, especially at his age. But he's not really going too high for what he's been, for as productive as a receiver he's been. I'm willing to take a couple shots with him because I feel like if he comes back and he's healthy, we don't know what kind of Stephon Diggs we're getting, but he could help you. I mean, his ceiling could be pretty high, and so he's one of those guys. It depends on how you've been constructing your team. If you're willing to kind of take a few weeks in the early seasons and you don't need Diggs, I think he's the perfect type of receiver to kind of stash. And then once you get into that mid to late season, you could have a really productive Stephon Diggs, depending on where he goes.
Stephon Diggs right now in the Superflex version of the Never-Too-Early Best Ball Tournament is going on average, according to Mojo, at, whoops, that's not right at all. Now I have it here. Wide receiver 45 at the 905. This is after Luther Burden III, Jacoby Myers, and Josh Downs. And it is right before Travis Hunter, Michael Pittman, and Emeka Egbuka. So a lot of interesting names there going in the 9th round of the FFPC.
Pittman's going ahead of Egbuka this year? Amazing.
Right now he is. I mean, not by much, but right now he is. Ferrell, I am fresh out of emails for Mr. Thomas tonight, but I know you have one final question for him.
I got one final question, but Balky, can I take a little extra time because I got a few other questions that I would like you to hit with me, sir, because you're a fantastic guest and a knowledgeable player. I'm intrigued. Do you and your dad spend how much time talking fantasy football, watching football?
Yeah, me and my dad, we have a good relationship. We talk on the phone pretty much every day, and I would say 97% phone call is fantasy football. I
love that. Does anyone else in the family feel shut out? Is anyone else in the family in protest because of this monopoly of fantasy football in the relationship?
No, we give my mom some time to kind of get in on the phone call and say hi. And then
mom's getting 3%. I like that.
Exactly.
Mom's getting a good agent commission. That's 3%. That'll go a long way in the world. Who you like in the Super Bowl? The Chiefs and the Eagles are playing. You got a favorite?
I can't pick against the Chiefs. I think they're a better team, and I can't go against Mahomes. I think that team's just too good.
Well, the quarterback is a Texan, so that doesn't surprise me. Are you like all guys from Texas? Have you got a big rooting interest in college football? Do you watch a lot of college football?
Love college football. I don't have a specific team. I am a Dallas Cowboy fan, though.
Yeah, nobody will hold that against you. Nobody will hold that against you except some guy named Terp. Okay. Who do you not want? This is you seem to be a positive guy. You seem to have an idea about where a player should go in the draft and what you're willing to spend. But who is a player that you just don't want at all?
I think the first guy is, and I don't really understand it, but it's Isaiah Pacheco. He's going as an RB2. He's going as an RB2 right now. I think it's RB22. I don't even think he's a starter right now with Kareem Hunt there. This is a guy that he's a 7th round draft pick, could get phased out next year. I do worry that the Chiefs are going to bring somebody in. He's going really high for a guy that just hasn't been playing well recently. And I'd be concerned that he could fall in drafts after the NFL draft.
I think you're wrong about him, but I like your logic to get there. I want another question about the Chiefs. This wide receiver group by committee, they've got a lot of big names there. Who knows what it'll look like next year? But if this same group comes back, do you look at the Chiefs and say, I don't really want to get involved with these guys because it could be one guy any weekend? Is that kind of what's going on in the Chiefs receiver room?
No, I actually like, so Rashee Rice does make me a little nervous because there's a couple of concerns with him going on. Obviously the injury he's recovering from, and then the possible suspension for next year. But I like what I've seen out of Xavier Worthy. He seems like he's been stepping up.
Yeah.
And so he's a guy that I definitely would want on my best ball teams because I think he can take it to the house anytime. And he's going to be a pretty interesting player next year. So I'm in on Worthy, sort of in on Rice. We'll have to see how he's recovering from that injury.
Are you in on Kelsey again?
Kelsey's a complete stay away for me right now. Not a guy I want to be drafting at this time because even if he's playing next year, what's he really going to give you? I'm a little hesitant with him right now. I prefer a few other tight ends around him. So
even though he was on your championship team, you're willing to cut ties.
I'm cutting ties right now. There's too much going on with him.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on. Who's your favorite player that you're going to take in every draft?
I think it's pretty criminal right now that Dak Prescott is a late 4th round pick in Superflex. And look, I'm not a homer. I try not to even draft Cowboys. But if you would have asked me where he's going in drafts right now, or a couple of weeks ago, I would have said he's around Jared Goff, he's around Brock Purdy. No, he's going really late, and he's a guy that I think is. He put up QB1 numbers in 2023, QB1 overall numbers. Yeah, he's a guy I'm targeting if I can.
And final
I'm going to turn all my questions back over to Balky and all commentary back over to Balky because Balky is one of the most skilled individuals I've ever met. And he displayed that again tonight by booking you for the show. He's a genius of the booking.
Oh, thank you so much, Ferrell. You are too kind. Final question for you, Brad. How much, because you've been doing this for a long time, how much have you been able to profit off of buying players, that proven players coming off down years, right? Especially ones that ended in injury. Chris Godwin, Dak Prescott, Rashee Rice, 3 candidates this year that many people will push down draft boards because they know the 2024 season was bad because of injury or what have you. But I feel like, and you bring it up with Prescott, and I was talking with Draft Sharks Jared Smola about this last night. It's just too low. Quarterback 18 right now. People forget about how good he was in 2023. They're keeping the offense consistent with Brian Schottenheimer. He's got CeeDee Lamb coming back. Jake Ferguson looks good. They need a secondary receiver there, but Prescott without a secondary receiver in 23 was pretty good. But when you talk about drafting these proven players coming off bad years, I feel like that could really be a boon for these best ball teams.
It is. I think it's one of the advantages. I like to take advantage of when it comes to that. There's people I don't know if they forget about these guys. They're just looking at last year's stats. Another player is Evan Ingram, who was injured most of last year, and now they got the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator coming in. And so like these guys, I target at really low cost that can win you a league. And so I don't expect Dak Prescott's ADP to be in the late 4th too long, but now's a good time to go after those guys that were injured because I think a lot of people just forget about them.
Strike while the iron is hot, for sure. That's great advice. It's we say it every year, not only with the Never-Too-Early tournament, but a lot of the other tournaments too that the FFPC offers. If you draft early, you are getting some pretty good deals on a lot of these players. A lot of people are nervous to do it, but fortune favors the bold, like bold Brad Thomas, who won the $10,000 grand prize in the FFPC Superflex Never-Too-Early tournament last year. Great stuff from you tonight. A lot of good insights. We may have to keep it in the family next week. I may have your dad on to co-host with me next Friday. Since he did such a good job tonight, we got to pick his brain. He did say you had a better year than him in 2024. Will he have the better year in 2025? Time will only tell. But I will tell you, thank you for coming on tonight and how much Ferrell and I enjoyed having you on. Good luck with everything. Keep doing the Lord's work with everything you're doing with the crisis hotline, with mental health. We appreciate that as well. And I will talk with you soon again. Brad, enjoy the drafts, and I'll see you in the draft rooms.
Thank you, guys. It was an honor being on here. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Brad Thomas, ladies and gentlemen, joining the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight, the $10,000 champion of the FFPC Never-Too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament. More on his father coming up later on in the show. Ferrell, do we have time for emails tonight?
We can do whatever you want, Balky.
All right, let's crush some emails here. We'll go first to Todd in Palestine, Texas. I wonder how close that is to San Antonio. I don't know. Hello, gentlemen. How are you handling drafting Vikings right now? Are you assuming J.J. McCarthy is starting week 1? Thank you, Todd in Palestine, Texas. I talked about this with Jared Smoller from Draft Sharks last night on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, and he said all the Draft Sharks guys, all their projections are based on J.J. McCarthy starting week 1. They do not think Sam Darnold is going to be back with the Vikings, and they do believe it's all setting up for McCarthy to start week 1. He is being drafted as quarterback 27 right now. I would handle drafting Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson and all the sons in Minnesota right now as if McCarthy's throwing to him. And I'm not shying away from him, Ferrell. I have not high hopes for McCarthy, but I don't think he's going to weigh this team down.
No. And he's had the benefit of watching it for a year. And when you assume what happens, Balky, so, Jefferson has proved that all the sons, they've proved they're professional receivers. They can help an inexperienced quarterback out. Do not live in fear, Balky. Draft your Vikings.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you 100%. Dennis in Van Nuysville, New Jersey. Am I right to let someone else in my drafts take Packers receivers again this season? Thanks, guys. That is Dennis in New Jersey. Thank you, Dennis. Ferrell, you are not targeting Packers receivers again.
If everything remains the same, let's just look somewhere else.
My only concern is, and I've been on the record saying I don't think Christian Watson plays at all in 2025, and I don't know.
Wow.
That's just. I mean, you tear your ACL in mid-January. I'm not buying this. He's coming back in week 12 or week 13, and even if he does, Ferrell, I don't think he's going to be a force on the field. That field flipper that we've been getting used to. With him for fantasy, he's off my radar. But yeah, I don't think he comes back and plays this season. Romeo Doubs had a really nasty concussion in that Philadelphia game with the Guardian cap on. I don't know what his football future is going to be like. Brian Gutekunst in his season-ending press conference as the GM of the Packers alluded to some injuries that the Packers are going to be dealing with at the receiver position next year, which makes me think that Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed might have some pretty big roles for the Packers this year because anybody else they're signing, and I can't imagine that they're going to be breaking the bank for T. Higgins or anybody like that, or anybody else they're drafting, they will be taking a back seat to those two guys. Wicks and Reed are going to be depressed this year when it comes to their ADP based on what happened last year. Wicks is going at the 16-12 as wide receiver 77. Jaden Reed is going as wide receiver 39 at the 804. I can actually get on board with both those players in a best ball format at those values. Now, you want to talk about the FFPC main event, KFFSC main event, KFFSC managed drafts. Okay, that might be a different conversation. But for best ball at those prices right now, I would not be shying away. Not targeting, but I wouldn't be shying away. That's how I would handle it. Okay.
And that's why I should defer all Packer questions to you for many, many reasons. Right. And that was eloquently dispatched report. And I will just finish it up by saying I think the Packers need Adam Thielen. That's what I think would happen.
Oh, that'd be spicy.
That'd be good.
A nice, reliable guy. He'd be a slower, skinnier Tucker Kraft in Green Bay. We'd love to see that.
There you go.
I don't know. We'll see. That would be a nice little addition. Rick in Gainesville. What are the chances that Anthony Richardson is the starting quarterback for the Colts this season? Ferrell, I will defer Colts questions to you, but I am very, very bearish on Richardson being the starter for Indy.
Well, we just don't know, brother. It's hard, again, let's go back to my favorite thing about Richardson, downfield accuracy. He can throw the long pass and people can run under it, especially Pierce. When you can do that, you have promise in the NFL. They're not going to, they're not going to junk this player after one season. Now, whether or not he's going to be successful, that's a whole nother question. But I suppose he's barely getting drafted at all. But, if you're going to have a best ball quarterback, a third quarterback, Richardson's sort of an interesting guy to look at.
And he is not being drafted as a third quarterback. Quarterback 15, Ferrell, is where he's going right now at the 10:07. He is going ahead of guys like Drake May, CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, Tunga Vailoa, Lawrence, Penix, a lot of guys here that are going behind Richardson.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
So he's going as a second, and that's a little too high for me. And last year when he was being drafted in the 5th round, that was ridiculously high for me.
Right, yeah, exactly. You've not had a whole lot of Richardson on your rosters, and that is not going to change in 2025. Final question we have here tonight, Ferrell. It comes from DeKalb, Illinois. Hello, HSFF Hour. Everyone is super excited about the Bears here, but are Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams going to live up to the hype? Bear down. That is Lou in DeKalb, Illinois. Thank you for the email, Lou. Ferrell, I am not bearish on Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. I think this could work out. I see the talent in Williams. I see the talent in Johnson. By no means a guarantee that they're going to revolutionize the sport or anything like that. But yeah, I'm willing to give them a shot this year. We'll see what happens.
I was pretty excited about anywhere that Ben Johnson goes. Now, the Chicago kind of that decision sure didn't see that coming. But, I think we're going to be okay with this player, with this coach and this quarterback. So we should see growth, improvement, accuracy, and a group of players around him that have a more defined and clearer purpose. Because when you watch the Bears, you never could really figure out what was going on. Right. The fans would sit there with confused looks on their face. It didn't seem to have any continuity from week to week. The offense was just a guessing game, not necessarily a unit that seemed well developed. That'll be gone. You'll know what he'll go into games knowing what he wants to expect and or knowing what he wants to deliver. And you cannot expect success without this quarterback improving. I think the quarterback improves.
Yeah, I think he does as well. And as long as they focus on the offensive line in the drafted free agency, Bears offense could be big. Xavier McKinney was just on, was it the NFL Spotlight podcast? And he said he thinks there's going to be 4 Super Bowl contending teams in the NFC North next year. He knows the Bears are going to be better. Super Bowl contending, I don't know, but Xavier McKinney knows more about ball than I'll ever know. So I'll take his word for it. Sure. Another guy who has forgotten more football than I will ever know is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. KFFSC.com. KFFSC.com is where to go. Register now for everything that is going on with the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. The party is less than a week away, or about a week away, I should say, at Caesars Southern Indiana. Tom Smith is going to be there. I will be there in spirit. I'll be drafting with a bunch of these guys. It's going to be a lot of fun, Ferrell, and it's going to be a great year for the KFFSC as well.
Thank you, sir. We're going to get started. All we have going right now is our big event next weekend, the Super Sunday Sweet 16, and we actually, Balky, have a live spot available Saturday at noon. A live spot is now available, and we have 6 spots online, which will conclude the Super Sunday weekend. The 6 spots, February 18th was a Tuesday night. Anyone that can participate from online from any of the 19 states where we are operating are welcome to join on to that league and take a run at our 96 teams, $10,000 grand prize.
That is the Rocky Blyer online division, right? Am I seeing that right?
Yes, sir.
And you have Petri and Larson in that draft. I will be in that draft. Jeremy Brock is in that draft. Biplab Mandel is in that draft. So there's going to be a ton of fun guys to compete against with in that draft. So sign up today. Draft against me on February 18th for sure. Ferrell, this has been real. You did such good work tonight. Why don't you take next Friday off and I'll take care of it. We will talk with you not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that.
Wednesday will be a magical Wednesday show. Yeah, the guest father's taking over for me. The family is so good that I've been relieved for next week. It's fantastic.
Enjoy the Super Bowl, man. Have a great time, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, buddy.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. I want to thank him. I want to thank our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce, and, of course, our producer and mutual friend, Rob, the FFPC, as well as Brad Thomas, tonight's guest. Brad Thomas was so awesome tonight that when we reconvene at 10 p.m. Eastern next Friday, I will be joined by special guest co-host Scott Thomas, who is Brad Thomas's father. Scott is also a champion in the FFPC. He has won 5 league titles, and he's going to co-host next Friday's show with me. It's going to be a blast at 10 o'clock Eastern time. In case you missed last night's Thursday edition of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, as well as the FFPC socials, Jared Smola and I chopped it up for 2 hours. It was great because the Draft Sharks projections are coming out in about 2 weeks, and Jared gave us a special preview of a lot of players in those rankings. So that was a lot of fun. You can go back and watch it at your leisure. We will be back this coming Thursday. I'm very excited for this show. Establish the Run and player profilers Ryan Reynolds makes his return to the show. Ryan is an excellent futures bettor, and he is an excellent prop bettor. So we will have a special segment dedicated to Super Bowl props and maybe futures bets for 2026 or 2025 and 2026 Super Bowl champs. That'll be a lot of fun. That's at 7 o'clock this Thursday night. The FFPC Never-Too-Early Superflex and best ball tournaments are going on right now. Play now at myffpc.com. Enter for $200 and you can play, or enter for $125 and win up to $40,000 in the classic Never-Too-Early best ball tournament. $35 will get you into the Superflex edition, and you can win $10,000 like our guest tonight, Brad Thomas, did last season as well. 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clocks going on right now, myffpc.com. Dynasty Orphans available over at myffpc.com. Numerous teams have had their entry fees reduced for 2025, 1,800-plus leagues in 15 years. Not a single one has ever folded. Play fantasy football year-round with the FFPC. Pick up your orphans at myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live right here on the channel. Thank you so much for watching tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I know we went a little bit long, but hey, bonus HSFF hour. Who's going to say no to that? Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I'm going to mention this again at the end of the show. We are having some issues with switching our podcast feed to a new provider, a new host. I am busy working on it, have been busy working on it the last few weeks. We're trying to get this hammered out. We'll get the audio podcast, the audio version of this podcast up as soon as we can. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. There's been a lot of snafus so far, so we're trying to get that fixed. But I will let you know when everything is good to go on that front. Until then, you can always check us out on the FFPC YouTube channel and the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour YouTube channel as well. It is a football-less weekend. Why not hop in a few FFPC drafts to pass the time until Super Bowl Sunday? Enjoy it, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next week.